I want to go back to the discussion of 24 teams in the playoffs and the growing voice of people trying to get away from 24. If you were not with us on Friday, Rece Davis, College Game Day, made some national headlines with these comments. Now, this comes on the heels of on Thursday, Jim Phillips, ACC commissioner, leaving the ACC spring meetings off the coast of Jacksonville, Amelia Island, saying that the ESPN doesn't want 24 teams, doesn't want a 24-team playoff, but that he, his coaches, his ADs back a 24-team playoff. Here's Rece Davis, who sort of echoed what also earlier in the day Mike Greenberg had said on ESPN's Get Up, is that 24 seems to be too much. Rece uses a different word.
Where are you on this debate right now, 16 or 24?
I think 24 is preposterous and 16 is bordering on it. I wish they would leave it at 12 and do an extra round of games on campus. Right now, the struggle is largely due to business and control, and it's not necessarily for the good of the game. And the coaches who are getting behind this, I believe, and reasonable minds can differ, but the coaches who are behind this think it's going to save their job. It's not. Some places, maybe, I don't want to, you take a lower rung, traditionally SEC school, maybe making the playoff will save your job. Do you think that's going to work at Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Michigan, Georgia? No. And the thing that I do remain concerned about is that as much as I love college basketball, is that we turn it into the college basketball regular season where you have to be a devoted fan of the sport as a whole or a devoted fan of one team to really lock in on a regular season game. And the regular season in college football still remains the best in all of sports. You want it to matter.
You want it to matter. And that is a concern for some people that don't want it to go to 24. Brooks did a graphic over the weekend of if we had started a 24-team playoff in 2014, how many different schools would have made a 24-team playoff starting in 2014? That number is 80. 80 different teams would have had a playoff season if we'd have started this in 2014.
Yeah, that's a joke. That's an absolute joke. And you know what's crazy?
Most of the sports.
I saw this go out over the weekend, and there is a program that is not in there. Did anything jump out to you guys as far as an obvious program?
Do you see one, Jim?
I mean, it's a lot. So, I mean, I just
there's a lot
it's going to take you a minute to process
it. I mean, Nebraska is the one that jumped out for me.
I mean, can you imagine, though, going 12 years in a 2014 playoff when you look at all of those programs that at least had one appearance and Nebraska never had one or wouldn't have had one?
Now, Troy is on there. So, too, is an Appalachian State. You know, there's a UNLV, there's an Army, there's a Liberty.
San Jose State, there's a Tulsa.
Well, maybe Brooks knows this on the fly. How many Big Ten would have gotten in? I mean, Nebraska's obviously not there. I doubt Rutgers would have one.
No, Rutgers, no.
Purdue probably not. Well, maybe
Purdue
one.
not on there.
Okay. Vandy's on there, so would all the SEC have been on there? I don't see Mississippi State.
State's on there several times.
Okay,
they have
on there.
Would have had 4 appearances. I believe the entire SEC would have made it at one point.
Okay, so that is what Rece was saying for lower rung SEC teams. Those are job savers. But let me attack this from a different angle.
But shouldn't be, you know?
Yeah, I agree with Rece.
Okay, but let me attack it from a different point of view. If, say, UCF had been a playoff team twice on the graphic there, if BYU had been a playoff team 4 times on the graphic there, if Auburn had been a playoff team 4 times on the graphic, are their programs in different places now than they are currently? If they had been playoff programs, does that change your trajectory? If you get into a playoff, does that also increase the amount of money your boosters are willing? Does it sort of fire up the fan base, fire up the boosters, start a little recruiting momentum? Does it open a door?
So here's a good program to discuss that on. Use Auburn for an example. I can't remember if you mentioned them just now, but
just threw it out there.
Okay, Auburn had 4.
Yeah, all
in Gus Malzahn. Yeah, none of those were Brian Harsin. None of those were Hugh Freeze, right? All Gus Malzahn for those.
It would feel a little different just initially Gus Malzahn's time at Auburn would feel a little different.
It would. Would it have saved his job, though?
Eventually, no.
Well, but I mean, would you have moved from him when you moved from him? I think is the question you have to answer. So let me
here's
just.
The only thing I would say about that. You could save a job if you get in and you make a Mario Cristobal-like run.
That is true. That's what you don't know.
Yeah, and Auburn probably on certain years was probably good enough defensively and running the football where maybe they could have won a couple of games.
So just looking at this, Brooks, help me out here. So Auburn's would have been obviously 2013, 2017, 2019. What was the fourth one? Do you remember?
2016 when they made the Sugar Bowl and got beat by Oklahoma. Had a great defense.
Yeah. They were 8-5. It turns out
8-4 would have been 8-4 going into the postseason.
Yeah, 13 doesn't count in this though, Brownie.
That's true. My bad.
Sorry, 14.
My bad. Thank you, Jim. 14. Yeah, so 14. I mean, 2 8-win seasons get you in. But I mean, so here's my point. He would have been coming off the year he got fired, which was the COVID year, where Auburn went 6-4. It wasn't. I mean. By the way, in hindsight, Auburn would take 6-4 right now. They haven't had 6-4 since then.
Yeah, 6-4 and a.
Would have been in the playoff just the year before.
Yeah, 10-game conference schedule, 6-4.
That's right.
And
wouldn't have been fired at that point. No.
I don't think so. I mean,
playoffs in 2019.
That's right.
6-4 in a 10-game COVID season wouldn't have been fired.
Playoff in 2019 with an Iron Bowl win, and you're in the playoffs, and you go 6-4 in 2020. I don't think they fire Gus. I really don't. So yeah, it would have changed.
Well,
things.
they and I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well. I mean,
we'll only see what the success of Goalish. I mean, it would have been a good thing based on the fact you never hired Harsin.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to say it's been a good thing, Lance. They have not had a winning season since then.
They haven't had a winning season without Gus Malzahn on their coaching staff since Tommy Tupper.
Yeah, so it's been a minute.
Yeah, give me the graphic again, Forrester, if you can. But Auburn has had a national championship in 2010. They've had a passion for football. But think of some others along the way that may have changed. Mississippi State 4 times in the playoffs. Does that change the trajectory of where they are?
Maybe. Think about this. So a coach that I'm not going to say you guys shit on, but y'all don't think Dave Doeren's done a good job at NC State. He would have 5 appearances since 2014. He would be almost untouchable in Riley.
Yeah, but just where could that program grow is my point. Oklahoma State's on here 6 times. Where Oklahoma State could have grown in funding or something like that. Who else that is not normal? I mean,
Temple.
Washington is 5.
Matt Rule would have had Temple in the playoffs
twice.
Well, how about this? USC has never been. They would have been there 7 times.
It would feel different. I mean, I don't know if Clay Helton, if you move when you move, I don't know. That's the thing. You got to look back and because I tend to agree with Rece. Like everybody says, well, just making the playoffs is going to help. I don't think it is at Alabama. Like if Kalen DeBoer just makes the playoffs this year, that is it. He makes the playoffs. Alabama goes and plays a road game, and they get beat. The Alabama fan base is not going to be pleased by that.
No, I agree. And I think there's going to be some Alabama fans saying, hey, look, this is not working.
No. And so I don't agree with the sentiment that just across the board it's going to help. But now to Lance's point, if I'm an NC State fan, does Dave Doeren feel like we're kind of stuck in the mud? Yeah, but if I had 5 playoff appearances, maybe it doesn't.
That was my point all along, was not for the name brands, but for all the ones that are not name brands. NC State's a great example. Can that all of a sudden, 5 since 2014 is fairly consistently making the playoffs. Forget firing of coaches. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your program all of a sudden, because of the success, can go to another level.
Success breeds success.
That's right.
Said, yeah.
Am I right?
Money.
Outside of Clemson, they would have the most ACC appearances with Miami, right?
I think you're right about that. And so, to Jim's point, all of a sudden you're able to get boosters fired up. Like, guys, we can do this in football. If I could just get a little more money. Maybe you don't find a Cody Campbell from Texas Tech, Jim, but maybe you find 1/8 of a Cody Campbell that's an NC State graduate that's like, you know what, these playoffs are kind of fun. If we just invest $2 or $3 million more in NIL, we might could advance in this thing.
Yeah. Look what it would have done for Utah, by the way. 8 times in the playoffs.
Well, and they were good enough over that span where they could have won a couple of games. I'm not saying they would have ever won a national championship, but they were good enough on certain years where they could have made a little run.
Ole Miss finally got in, but 6 times in the playoffs for Ole Miss.
The thing I kept thinking about when I was making this on Saturday was how it makes a team maybe more appealing with the conference expansion, conference realignment. Oregon State, the last 2 years of the Pac-12 in 22 and 23 would have been a playoff team. how much more appealing would that have made them when they, kind of got hung out to dry with the old Pac-12 dissolving? They would have been a playoff team for 2 straight years and maybe been more appealing to one of these power conferences. And now they're a mid-major school.
Great example. Washington State's on there twice as well. Both of those left out.
You think
hung out to dry.
Iowa fans who have never been to a playoff would like 6 appearances?
6 of them.
And would it feel like from a stale situation to maybe a little bit
Now,
better?
I saw in response to Brooks' graphic here, there were people that were throwing up schedules like, by the way, this is a team that made the playoffs. Look at this schedule. And it was one of them was Iowa. It was our buddy Michael Borky over in Mississippi. I just happened to see it. I mean, there was a lot of, you beat Albany State, you beat Wisconsin, you beat Michigan State, you beat a bunch of you beat Rutgers, you beat your unranked team. I mean, there were no good wins, but you got in the playoffs.
That's Greg Burns' question, the Alabama athletic director, on when we're talking college football expansion, what are we talking about when it comes to strength of schedule beyond wins and losses? That's a question he wants answered. I think they wanted answered at 12. They wanted answered at 16, and they wanted answered at 24. Other than just wins and losses, how are we going to treat strength of schedule? To Brown's point on that one, is that schedule going to compare to a 7-5 SEC team whose strength of schedule is, a different page turn towards the top compared to an 8-4 team that makes it with a lesser schedule? It's questions that have to be answered. Final point on this: do the comments that Jim Phillips said that ESPN doesn't want this, they have the rights to the 2031 season for the playoffs, broadcast rights. Mike Greenberg and then Rece on our show, a couple of big ESPN voices, Rece huge in college football, voicing their concern for it, using the word preposterous. Does that change the narrative? Do you think we're inevitably going to 24, or do you think we'll have enough pushback that we hold at 12 or stop at 16?
Well, I think we might. I mean, the natural progression is let's see what 16 looks like before 24. I could see us hold for a little bit. I think ultimately we probably get to 24. I mean, every Big Ten coach is talking about how important the games would be, how many more important games there would be in November. I guess when you look at it like that, there's so many fringe teams that would get eliminated or play their way in. There probably would be more important games in November. Now, back to something we talked about last week, you could see an Iron Bowl or a Michigan-Ohio State game where people are resting.
Well, you hope not, but if that ever happens.
Ryan Day over the weekend, one of the bigger voices in the Big Ten, says to him it's more important to fix the college football calendar than it is to add teams to the college football playoff.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a coach feels that way. Fans probably aren't as passionate about fixing the calendar. They're like, we pay you $15 million to manage the calendar, you go do it.
I would love to see, I hear that phrase all the time, fix the calendar, fix the calendar. I would love for somebody to give me the dream scenario of what that calendar looks like.
Yeah.
And why can we not fix that?
That's right. Can I just quickly go back, though, to like Rece and Greenberg, because I was a bit surprised, not because Rece is not a big name and not because our guys don't do a tremendous job, but how much that took off nationally, what Rece said right there. And I was not at all. And the reason I was a bit surprised is because I don't think people are shocked that an ESPN guy is saying that. And I base that on the reaction that it got was, well, of course Rece is, I'm going to use the voice, of course Rece is going to say that. He works for ESPN. They don't want to pay more money. So anytime a guy like Rece or Herb Street or Greenberg or one of those guys says it, that's going to be the reaction. Is, well, they're just an ESPN mouthpiece. ESPN's got this at a price right now that they're comfortable with, and any expansion ends that. So they're going to want to push to keep it that way all the time. So that gets immediately discounted, of course.
Yeah, that's why, with Jim Phillips saying that ESPN doesn't want it, then Rece saying that on our show, that it was a huge deal.